Dallas with an update for us right now. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, guys. Yeah, officials spent most of this press conference talking about how this anti ICE rhetoric has to stop, or you have this violence like this happen. Federal agents, they're just trying to enforce the law, these officials say. The FBI is now investigating this as a targeted act. Here is what we know. Homeland Security says that before 7 a.m., a sniper started shooting from a nearby rooftop and fired indiscriminately at the ICE facility, including a van that was in the Sallyport. DHS says 3 detainees in that van were shot, and at least one of the detainees was killed. The gunman then turned the gun on himself. Officials say no ICE agents were hurt. The FBI, though, shared pictures of rounds found right near that shooter with anti-ICE engraved on those shell casings. This is the latest in a string of targeted attacks on ICE facilities right here in Texas. At this same facility, a man was arrested for making a bomb threat last month. Then in July, a group ambushed officers outside a separate Texas ICE facility. One officer was shot and survived that shooting. Senator Ted Cruz was here at this press conference and spoke about this violence.
Violence has no place. It is wrong. And we should come together. If we want to have a debate about immigration policies, we can do so in the halls of Congress without demonizing each other, and especially without demonizing the men and women who every day put on a badge and go risk their lives to keep us safe.
And of course, so many responding to this attack this afternoon. Vice President J.D. Vance posted a statement on X saying, quote, "The obsessive attack on law enforcement, particularly ICE, must stop." You also have Texas Governor Greg Abbott. He tweeted, quote, "This assassination will not slow our arrest, detention, and deportation of illegal immigrants." Again, guys, this happened outside of a processing center where illegal migrants are taken to get processed after they're arrested by ICE.
All right, Brooke Taylor in Dallas on the scene for us there. Stand by. Thank you.
All right, Bill Daley's a former FBI investigator and joins us now. I mean, this almost seems like a daily occurrence, Bill, that we have another day, the sun comes up, dawn breaks, and another politically motivated shooting. It's just no sign of stopping.
It's horrible, John. And you know, John, over these past several months and even the past, since the administration took over, you know, we've seen this kind of push by politicians and other people around ICE facilities. They've gone as far as even some of these elected officials kind of, you know, trying to force their way in, stopping vehicles. So, you know, it is kind of a buildup of what we've seen over the past few months, only to this point to a deadly level. You know, I think a lot of people speak about this rhetoric. You know, I'll cite a few things, but I know a lot of people are speaking about it, like to hear more about the investigation. But, you know, when you have elected officials calling ICE agents, you know, agents, modern Gestapo agents, or, you know, governors moving to not have masks on ICE agents because they want people to know who they are so they can go after them. You know, all of these things are lead up to people who might be prone, who are driven in a certain with an ideology or a direction, as we've seen today, and they carry out these horrific acts.
Bill, what is with this? I don't know if you would call it a trend, but for lack of a better word, the trend we're seeing where these assassins and mass shooters now like to try and carve little messages on shell casings before they carry out these shootings. Is this something that you have seen before the last few months, or is this new?
This is, I mean, it may happen periodically over a period of time where individuals, murderers, or other people may do something similar to this, but it's not a trend. This seems to be certainly a trend. You know, we saw it with the Mangione shooting in New York against the United Healthcare CEO, where he left his bullets on the sidewalk. We saw it with Charlie Kirk's shooter, and now here. So, you hate to say copycat, but certainly all the hallmarks of it is, you know, within the past few weeks, months, if you will, you know, we have people doing the same thing. The other thing, Jillian, I want to talk about is the FBI is investigating this. And I think, you know, a couple of positive things to be taken away from this. A, law enforcement was extremely responsive to this. FBI there on the scene. I think under the leadership of Director Patel, they're trying to be very forward-leaning and transparent. That was mentioned both by the SAC, agent in charge of the Dallas office, as well as Director Patel who came out and posted those images that you just referenced. So they're trying to be as transparent, as forward-leaning as they can, and to help the American people not start to spin their wheels with worrying, who's this shooting, is that they were able to provide some clarity pretty quickly with releasing that photo.
I want to get back, Bill, to this idea of the rhetoric. This is Joshua Johnson, who's the ICRO director there in Dallas. Here's what he said a little more than an hour ago.
This is the second time I've had to stand in front of you and talk about a shooter at one of my facilities, and I think that the takeaway from all of this is that the rhetoric has to stop. There are people out there who are seeing what is being placed online, and they're coming and they're doing acts of violence against ICE employees.
You know, we should mention that there were the shootings at ICE facilities in Texas not long ago. Add to this. And then you had the shooter, who sources identified at Fox News as 29-year-old Joshua John. We're trying to find out more about this individual who takes a gun. Looks like, according to the stripper clip that we saw a picture of posted by the FBI director, that it was just a typical hunting rifle with a capacity of 5 cartridges. Takes that weapon, aims it at the ICE facility, starts firing at will, and then takes their own life. And is it this rhetoric that people just keep doubling down on that suddenly causes someone to snap?
With kind of borrowing a little bit from I know from my behavioral analysis friends, you just don't know what reaches a individual and what breaking point they have. And although many people can kind of, flick this rhetoric off as being just that, political rhetoric, it does affect a number of people. And I think today, John, with all of the various sources that people are getting information, or ones that they want to lock themselves into with regard to social media and news outlets, and they're hearing it over and over again, the fragility of people, where they are at any particular moment, may lead them to commit one of these acts. But the other thing, too, John, as we look into this investigation, the FBI is doing this right now, is to find out, where did this person, where were they getting this information from? Where was he being, if you want to call it, kind of radicalized to conduct one of these acts? Who was he around? Was he talking to other people about this? It's the same thing they're going through right now, still on the heels of the investigation of the Charlie Kirk assassination, is to find out who else might be in the orbit of this person, who may be either encouraged, provided information, in any way knew about these plans and didn't come forward. So, there's still a lot of stones to be turned over in this investigation.
We've been talking a lot on this channel, Bill, this week about
Welcome in, y'all. Welcome in.
officers, a new rule proposed and put forward by Governor Gavin Newsom. Take a listen to what he said Saturday. I want to get your response.
I'll be signing a bill, the first in the nation, saying enough. ICE, unmask. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of?
How does that play into all of this when we're talking about the identities of specific individual ICE agents?
Yeah, well, I can tell you what they're afraid of. They're afraid of something that occurred today, and they're afraid of something that may happen to them or their families if they're identified. We're not talking about normal, everyday police operations where people in patrol cars or FBI agents are out there conducting, everyday activities. But when they're involved in these more contentious issues, which seem to be in certain locales more contentious than others, is they're very much concerned about their.
Hey, everybody, double tap the screen. Double tap the screen.
May come under attack. Could be everything from people showing up at their doorstep. Very easy today. A couple of clicks away, you can find out who somebody is by an image and therefore where they live. So those are the things people are concerned about. So I mean, you have to really, when the governor says that, you have to say, well, what is he then saying? He's saying that it's okay for all these people to then be further exposed because what they're carrying out their duties as sworn law enforcement officers of this country, carrying out the laws have been prescribed by Congress. So I mean, I think we have to take a look at that very sobering. The other thing, Jillian, is that with a lot of the talk about people having due process. Well, today, two of these people who are being just detained are denied their due process because they've been killed.
Right.
So when you flip that around, you have to say, what is really happening here when someone's willing to take not just someone's life, if the intention was to take an ICE agent's life or ICE agent's life, but also the due process of those people who are just being detained. They've not been convicted, and there's been no other specific allegations lodged against them, and their due process now.
Mom, I think we just went your laptop?
Yeah.
When your kid clicks the Win Big Now.
That's Walton.
Yes, you have a gunman who allegedly was anti-ice by the inscribings on the cartridges, the shell casing, and it ended up that it was detainees who died here. You mentioned this idea of risk and danger for agents who go out there every day, and they are just merely carrying out the laws of the United States of America. We heard personally from one of them back in July on Martha's show the story. Her name is Selena. Listen to what she told us.
I'm very proud to say that I work for ICE, and to have to take off my polo or, hide behind so that way my family is not put in danger or my colleagues are not put in danger. And I'm very, like I said, proud to work for ICE and to have to kind of put my polo down or my badge away for, for the safety of us.
So she says that when she's not on the streets there doing her job, she's got to go unidentified because of the potential risk to her or her family.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right, John. And it all ties back to what we first started speaking about. It's this rhetoric. It's when elected officials are out there on national television saying that these ICE agents are modern day Gestapo. Well, what are you supposed to do? I mean, if somebody heard that during World War II, what are they inclined to do? They act out. And so by using those words and describing people in a fashion who are law enforcement officers of the country sworn to uphold the current laws of our country, but not being guided by politics here, but by the law, and they very much concerned about their safety, and it makes sense that they need to protect themselves. So I hope that there's superseding federal statutes that will allow for all these federal officers and ICE agents to continue to cover themselves in states like California and other jurisdictions where they need to do it.
All right, Bill,
roof on the roof. You have the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and now you have this situation as well. There's a real threat there. Should people be concerned? So, just weeks after a sniper killed Charlie Kirk, another sniper opens fire at a Dallas ICE facility, killing a detainee and injuring two others. Officials are calling this a target attack, but the alleged shooter, investigators found casings at the scene etched with the word anti-ICE. Let's bring in former Assistant FBI Director Chris Swecker. Chris, thanks so much for joining the program. I want to go big picture, and I don't want to scare the public out there, but I do want to talk about the current threat. You have these snipers. You have the case of Dylan Roof on the roof. You have the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and now you have this situation as well. There's a real threat there. Should people be concerned?
Yeah, usually I say, the chances of the general public being targeted like this, or don't go out of your house type of warning, I don't do that. But in this case, we are starting to see a real threat. And I do security consulting.
That's right.
And my mind goes to parades and events, public events where there's a lot of people gathered around. The Charlie Kirk rally, that shooter could have targeted people in the audience and taken out quite a few people, unfortunately. So yes, this is a clear and present danger right now. And any event, I think, at any event that's being planned right now, you got to account for the rooftops and there has to be all kinds of precautions that you wouldn't take ordinarily unless it was something like a presidential visit where you have Secret Service and you would expect to see that kind of security, or the Super Bowl. But now we're in a situation where we've got this viral epidemic of snipers ideologically motivated, and I think motivated and indoctrinated by very irresponsible people in the public eye, who have nothing else in their game except to go out there and be extreme to get themselves on the media and get attention.
So, Chris, let's talk about that. Because you talk about the radicalization. And typically, like, for example, when we were fighting Al-Qaeda, this was online. Sure, you had inspiration videos from overseas, but you didn't have public officials within inside the country that were radicalizing them. You have this time the online aspect of this, right? You got the guys in their basement or on the video game, but you also have public officials making similar radical statements. So how do you combat that?
Yeah, so we worked a terrorism case here in North Carolina when I was the agent in charge, and we filed a RICO case against Hezbollah. And part of the RICO indicia, the evidence of the organization, were these indoctrination videos that they sent out that motivated the Hezbollah members to do all kinds of different things. But it's part and parcel with that indoctrination. And what we need is a material support statute on the domestic side of the house for domestic terrorism. You provide any type of motivation, indoctrination, material support to a domestic terrorist, then that becomes a 10-year felony in federal court.
Chris, let's talk about people continuing their daily life. I don't want to project that people shouldn't continue to do events. So how do you balance the two? You want the First Amendment to continue. You want people to be able to live their lives, go to parades and all of that, but take the threats seriously as well. How do you balance that as a security professional?
Yeah, it's like what happened after 9/11. I mean, we were in this state of heightened security everywhere. We were seeing Al Qaeda, behind